welcome to Happy Life Show. And we shall all have a great time out there tonight and be safe. Tonight we are talking about a very interesting topic, newspapers, the values and benefits of the newspapers. When we talk about newspapers, we almost ask ourselves or our friends, good news or bad news? Ready. Then we ask, what are the values and benefits about newspapers? About a couple months ago, I went to SunTrust Bank in downtown Richmond. I spoke to a group of Toastmasters, and the topic was the values and benefits of newspapers. So in the beginning, I asked my audience, and how many of you read newspapers? Immediately, everybody raised a hand, and that was great news, because we all enjoy reading newspapers. And then I asked, how many of you, knowing some students in high school, enjoy reading newspapers? I saw one hand. To me, that's bad news. Certainly it's a bad news for the newspapers. And I believe it's also bad news for our younger generation and our children as well, because they are not able to enjoy newspaper and reading them as the way we did when we were growing up. Because there are a lot of values, a lot of benefits of reading newspapers. And let me tell you some of the benefits and some of the values. And I'm sure you all can tell me more about the newspapers, because many of you already reading it every single day. And I'm excited to share this topic with you. And I would welcome you to call me, and we can discuss about the values and benefits about newspapers. First of all, how many of you reading this? Please raise your hands. Well, sorry, it's only Chinese newspaper. Maybe a lot of my audience and friends may not read Chinese, but it's exciting. Newspapers are all good newspapers, regardless of the language or where they come from, because as long as there's newspaper, we all can communicate with our family and friends. Then, how many of you read Time Dispatch or any local or national newspapers? I'm sure there are a lot of hands out there right now. Am I right? I want to thank you, and thank you for supporting the newspapers. We need newspapers, as the newspaper need our younger readers. We need each other. And let me explain to you why. The values and the benefits of the newspapers. Well, many of us feel very devastating because we had a tragical event in the last few days. A huge storm hitting the East Coast. Many people lost their lives. Unfortunately, many homes without powers as well. Disaster, they come and into our life, sometimes without warning, sometimes even with warning, and we are unable to stop it. And that is very sad news. But from those devastating bad news, should that stop us reading newspaper or hearing about the news? Of course not. Because bad news put ourselves, our community, our family and friends closer than ever. And we have to learn from these disasters. And we can learn from each tragedy so that we can improve our lives and understand about other people's feelings and feel for them. Our compassion, our helps, our support to those victims is able to call for our best from our hearts. And once again, let's go back and tell you about some of the benefits and values about newspapers. So when you open up a newspaper, a lot of those ads are maybe coupons, news, sports, entertainment, stories, comic, you name it, the newspaper has it. Just like an open book. As long as you dig deeper, spend time to read more, there's always more for us to learn from the news. And I remember years ago when my father-in-law, Mr. Wong, right after he had a stroke at the age of 50, he was basically paralyzed and in a coma for a couple of weeks. Once he was able to get up, I subscribed a newspaper for him to read. Soon, he was able to sit and read newspaper. And newspaper became his best companion during the day. 6 months later, he was able to stand up and walk with a cane. And I believe that newspaper was able to inspire him and able to enrich his confidence and give a reason for him to have more power to himself. It's such a beautiful thing that we are able to help someone like him by just offering him a newspaper to read, because it not only helped him physically, but I believe that it also helped him mentally to delay his memory loss. He was happily lived for many, many years and also continued to read newspaper every single day. Those are the good news about newspaper. And there's some bad news about newspaper too. It's not about the newspaper itself though. It's about our society and our children. Because when you look around, it is true, we have so many news available to our younger generations. And that's excellent. I thought that is wonderful. They spend some time, go to online, watch a little TV and get the news. To me, that's wonderful. But have you all noticed, my friends and family, parents, that our children are so much smarter nowadays than we were when we were growing up? And they are wonderful children. But common sense become no longer common. You think about it, our children are so smart, but they talk with us much less than we were talking to our parents. They were busy texting to each other. They don't use the phone anymore. They don't communicate the way that we did. And yes, their knowledge is so broad. But at the same time, when you think about it, do you think that they are ready to compete with other students or maybe the global market about the world economy? Are they prepared? We had the best tool. Even though we had the best school system here in America, we are not preparing our children to do as much as we were prepared to do when we were young. Because this world today has become much more competitive. We need more knowledge. And I believe that the newspaper can provide that knowledge, the power, the information, that all that we need to help our children to better prepare themselves by just reading the newspapers. Because the newspaper provides so much information here. Financial, history, events, That's what I said. It's just like an open book. Newspaper is important to each one of us. And I believe that newspaper is the best tools, one of the best tools for our children. If they take time to read it, they would enjoy it. And there are many, many benefits with the newspapers. Offer us a forum to express our opinion. Look at the politics. We hear both sides of the story, regardless Democrat or Republican. It balances our political landscape. When you think about it, the coupon not only just save us money, but help the businesses to survive, to pay the taxes, to keep them in business. Actually, when you're using those coupons in a newspaper, excellent idea. You're helping our economy to grow. You're helping the community as well. See, ladies and gentlemen, there are a lot of good reasons for us to read newspapers and keep the newspaper for our children and our younger children and our next many generations to come. We need the newspapers. Because without newspaper, you can say, well, we can enjoy reading news online or just watching on TV. To me, those are just fast food. I've been in the restaurant business all my life. I know what I mean when I say fast food. Fast food are good, excellent food, but in the meantime, newspaper can relax you. It is your best companion during certain hours. When you're resting, when you're alone, when you want to drink a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, this is your great companion. This gives you so much joy. And not necessarily just a bad story, say, hey, yeah, this is just sad story, I don't want to read it anymore. But we can learn from each story because they always have a different side. Depending on your perspective, your understanding of the story, you can share these stories and educate our next generation what to do and what not to do. And I strongly believe that by reading the newspaper, it can help you. It can help you to enhance your knowledge and also develop your common sense.